everyone, and welcome to Hypnotherapy School.net. I am Kyra Schaefer, and with me here is Todd Schaefer today, and we're going to talk to you about wanting more for your clients than they want for themselves. That is something that has been traditionally coming up in different types of therapy, specifically those therapies that are more soft therapies like Reiki, like intuitive healing, like hypnotherapy in some cases, and it absolutely happens in other types of alternative healing modalities, even in chiropractic and acupuncture. But I will say that some therapies have different levels of treatment where they go in deep with clients, and hypnotherapy is definitely one of those where you could experience things like wanting more for your clients than they do, or things like transference, where they make their healing about your ability and not their own. So we have so much to say on this. This might not be just one audio because it is so valuable and important on what needs to happen here in those types of situations. Now, we go in depth in these types of trainings and things like that at hypnotherapieschool.net. But for right now, we want to just look at some of the obstacles that come up. Some of the things that have come up for me when working with clients is the fix me. Okay, I'm coming to you, so you fix me. And they're not taking any responsibility for their healing, for their growth, and they're actually putting me a little bit too much in the driver's seat. So in one way, we want to make sure that we are in the driver's seat of the session, because we do know more than they do around what type of therapy we're using for them. But really, they are the ones that are meant to guide the session and guide it in a way that they will find is the most helpful for them. But we can't want it more for them than they do. And the one time with one client, I had her come in. She folded her arms across her chest, and she said, you know, show me what you got. And I was like, well, I don't have anything. You have it all. You know, you have it all. So you tell me where we're going with this. And eventually she did actually, you know, say, oh, you know, working with you was very helpful, and this was the result, and all these things. But that first initial meeting is so important and so valuable when you are learning about where their limitations are and where they're wanting to limit you as their practitioner as well. Just some thoughts there on that for me.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely this is absolutely crucial in terms of how important it is to establish the right kind of relationship with your clients. And when you get a certification like alternative, holistic, as far as I know, how you're supposed to conduct your relationship with clients isn't covered in any of your trainings. So that's what makes getting this right so important, so that you can be taken seriously as a practitioner, so you can work successfully with clients, and so that you can have a successful, thriving, profitable business, right? You can't just have a certification and then practice and then have no clue as to what types of boundaries you need to have with clients, for example.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, so you said the theme was,
I can't want it more than you do.
I can't want it more than you do. Yeah. So yeah, there's so many things we could talk about. This could be an entire playlist on this one topic. Yeah. A really simple analogy is you stepping up to the line and the client stepping up to the line, but neither one of you should cross the line, right? You need to step up, be in your power. Be in the driver's seat of the session, know how to lead and direct the client, but not, I repeat, not doing any of the work for the client, right? Yeah. So the client needs to show up. They need to know, they need to be willing and accountable. They need to do the homework you give them. They need to show you that they want what you have, and that happens from things like qualifying the client correctly on the on your intake assessment, for example.
Yeah.
And just making sure you're not letting a dud client into your business who you shouldn't be working with, someone who's not ready, whether they be too closed or too way too open and all over you and victim-y, or there's all kinds of scenarios there, but yeah, you need to do your part, the client needs to do their part, and you don't want to be rescuing the client or projecting your needs onto them, for example, and needing them to be a certain way, and all of a sudden the client's, it becomes about you and not the client anymore.
Right.
So there's a whole number of things to consider with the client relationship, the client practitioner relationship, and these have been just a couple of random examples.
Yeah. So some of the things that you would look out for here are one of the things that I realized, I screwed up somewhere along the line, was somebody said to me, "Oh, well, I feel like I'm just paying you to be my friend." And I was like, time to reel it in, time to get some homework going, time to, start pushing them in a different awareness so that they start realizing that, nope, this is not that. And it's interesting when you're a person who's very loving and very open and very friendly and very kind, that it's natural that you attract people who want to be around that and be close to that, and to want to be that for themselves. And so those lines can get blurred really quickly. And so it's important that you know what you need to do in order to shift that, or shift them out of that perception of you. And it might even mean that you go in and you refer them to a different practitioner, because now they are seeing you in a different way, and they are not, maybe, potentially, not going to take what you're treating them with and for seriously. And so that's a big piece.
Huge, yeah. Of the bajillion million things we can talk about under this topic, that was a wonderful example, which is I feel like I'm paying you to be my friend.
Yeah.
That could be a compliment, and it could also mean a number of different things, including, am I getting value from this appointment, right? And if and it could mean, are you showing up with enough authority, kind of thing. That doesn't mean you're an asshole or anything. It just means you show up professionally, and you are focused on service to the customer, right? Now, it's okay. The friendly comment, kind of makes me think, I'm paying you to be my friend. Well, ask yourself, are you building too much rapport? Are you focusing on people pleasing to build so much rapport with the client that to make yourself feel comfortable, that to avoid fear of rejection, perhaps, so that the client feels like, well, gosh, this is how anybody who wants to befriend me would interact with me if they want to befriend me, or they want my approval, but not necessarily how a practitioner should be showing up.
Yeah.
So if a client makes that kind of comment, it could mean any number of these things, but not limited to these things only.
Yeah. And the other places that I've gotten burned out have been from wanting things more than they do, because I feel like I'm spending energy and effort in thinking about them outside the clinic, or thinking about them while I'm doing something else, or allowing the dreaded text message.
Bum bum bum.
The dreaded text message client, who that immediately puts them in the friend category, by the way. So don't expect to potentially either see them long term or get paid, because you're definitely not going to get paid for that text message that they just spent 30 minutes or 45 minutes where you've been working with them. And Todd had to actually coach me out of the text message thing when we first started and opened our clinic, because I was just way too accessible. So that would be an example of me wanting it more for them than they want for themselves, because they could be using that time working on stuff, working on worksheets, going out, looking at YouTube videos, finding the answers for themselves, and then coming back to me with their information and what they've discovered or learned. But instead, no, they want to hook in. They want to settle in. They want to anchor in and say, you are the cause of my relief. And that just cannot be the case. You cannot let them do that.
No, that's a codependent relationship, and that's the kind of thing that you would get. You would, if you were going to school to be a counselor. That kind of thing would be addressed, and you have to, come hell or high water, you have to learn this stuff as a professional, certified practitioner, so that you can have constructive, healthy, boundary-based relationships. I'm sure we can go into. I mean, I can just visualize an entire playlist about boundaries, but I'll just piggyback one little thing without going too far down the rabbit hole, and that is with hypnotherapy or coaching-related services, live coaching especially, do not text your clients. You know, they should not have your personal phone number.
No.
They can leave a voicemail on a business line if you have a business line, phone line. Voicemails are fine, or you're accessible during your business hours, right? If you need to, no, I don't think there would be any need to have an emergency. You can just leave that on a voicemail and say, if this is an emergency,
call
hang up, call 911, right?
Yeah.
Because as a hypnotherapist, you're not responsible for any emergencies.
No.
They would just need to call 911. A psychotherapist, on the other hand, would need to say that kind of thing.
Yeah, or they may have a hotline or an emergency line.
Or a hotline or a...
Not as a hypnotherapist. No. You are working with the worried well. You are not working with psychosis.
Right.
You would actually send people with major psychosis to a psychologist.
Right.
And that can be a really good strategic partnership. But it's not who you work with anyway.
Great. Another great boundary is knowing when someone needs more than hypnotherapy and when to refer them out. Right, mm-hmm. So that's another great point. But just to tie up my other point with healthy boundaries with clients is to make sure you have bookended communication methods. You know, you're available when your business hours are open, and you are unavailable when your business hours are not open, or they can email you. No Facebook messaging, no texting, because those are forms of communication that are not bookended. And
they'll go on.
They go on and on, and it also makes you, the therapist, the hypnotherapist, not turn off your brain from work mode. Yeah. Because you'll be, whether you're texting a little or a lot with clients outside of business hours or during whatever, you are not turning off your work brain, and your brain's never going to relax from having some solid time with no work, right? Yep. So I just wanted to reinforce that. I know it seems small, and I know it seems like maybe you're giving extra service by letting them have access to you via text. You will regret it. You have been warned.
One of the things that Todd said to me, because I would take my problem, even if I wasn't texting with somebody, I would still be thinking about, how do I problem solve this issue for them? Therein lies the whole point that I'm making here, right? How do I solve this problem for them? We don't solve the problem. We ask the questions, and they solve the problem for themselves. That's to right. Clarify. But one of the things that he said that helped me to readjust my thinking and reframe it was, are they paying you for this time? And I was like, no. Have they scheduled their next session? No. So you're not getting paid for this time, and they haven't scheduled another session, so you may not see them ever again, and you're still working on this problem for them? Yes. Okay. Then that needs to shift. That needs to change. Right. You know, so there's no reason for you to spend time outside of your hour with them unless you are using them as some kind of case study that is going to help other people, and you're intending to use that as something like a major transition in your business or something, but ultimately, no.
Treat your practice like a licensed attorney would treat theirs. Anytime they spend even thinking about a client gets billed to that client. Because thinking about a client as a lawyer is professional services rendered to consider an argument or how to show up in a case. I mean, just a lawyer's brain about your situation, any time spent on that is chargeable time. Now, as a hypnotherapist, you don't need to do any of that because you're only charging for people when you are in communication with them, right? If you're doing hypnosis or coaching, which means, to draw a comparison with the lawyer analogy, you should be charging for any time you are dealing with the client. And there's no need, you could charge when you're thinking about the client when you're not with the client, but there's no need to do that as a hypnotherapist. You should just not be thinking about the client when you're not with them. Right. You shouldn't be. I mean, and if you do, jot a note down and 5 minutes kind of thing, but not hours, and definitely not over text. Text sends the wrong message about your self-worth, about your business's worthiness, and it sends the wrong message to your clients, almost as if they just have infinite access to you, and then it blurs the line on professional boundaries. It is so awful. It's a business killer if it goes unchecked.
It is. It really is, because one, you'll get burned out potentially, and also two, you'll not be looked at as a professional. You'll be looked at as a friend.
Everybody's your friend. Yeah, that's improper positioning. Yeah.
Yeah. Todd was so much better at this than I was, as far as, when we had our clinic, we wore white coats in our clinic just to delineate where our standing in this situation, and we had every right to do that. And so, we had name tags, we had, all these things that helped to set ourselves in the position of authority in what we were doing, because it's something that's just a marker for the mind. The mind can, a person coming into a situation sees some of these pieces, like having a receptionist, having a front desk, having a scheduling system, having a payment system,
having an office,
having multiple, well, in our case it was, multiple rooms. All of this stuff helped to inform where they were coming into. They were not coming into your home, which there's nothing wrong with that to a certain degree, but just remember that you never want to be put in a position where you might have to move. Right. I used to see clients out of my apartment when I lived in North Carolina. And I got to be honest with you guys, like, it was kind of scary sometimes when there was a new person coming, and they maybe had done an online schedule or something like that, and I was a single gal. So there was definitely moments where, it was easy for them to cross boundaries. I allowed it in many cases, but after my hypnotherapy certification is when the rubber hit the road for me, because then I was like, wait a minute. I'm a professional person that deserves to have her boundaries upheld and respected. And so when you're looking at that with yourself and the kind of things that you're going to be doing as far as hypnotherapy and treating clients and all that kind of stuff, please be sure to do what you can, whatever you can, to mark out the difference. And it's not because they aren't capable of seeing you as that. It's just that there are things that are natural markers for you that can actually help you when you're doing this.
Right, great point. When you are a holistic / alternative practitioner who is especially unlicensed, one certified, the public isn't going to know how to consider you as a business owner, right?
Yeah.
And you have to teach them, right? If you go to a doctor and another doctor, everybody knows how to show up in that regard. As a hypnotherapist or life coach, they don't know. And it's good to give them trust symbols to let them know that you're legitimate. Having an office, if you can justify that expense, or as soon as you can justify that expense with your income from the business, or
having an office inside of a different type of wellness practice.
Right, yeah, or having a room and a rental. Yeah, I'm not saying you have to buy a building or anything.
Right.
You can rent by the hour.
Yeah.
To get inside someone else's holistic practice, for example.
Yeah.
Wearing a uniform or wearing a white coat or something, just professional dress. These are all things that make you more legitimate to the public. Mm-hmm. So I highly recommend doing that as much as you can, especially as a certified person who is not licensed and who the public may not have awareness of, especially if you have a very niched service.
Yeah.
If your service is too niched, as a holistic type of a service, like toe reading or
that's very niched.
Yeah, it's very niched. You don't see toe reading offices out there like McDonald's, right? But what you do see is holistic wellness centers or spas that list toe reading as a service. So if there isn't enough demand for something, it's going to be grouped with other like services under a different building, because there's not public awareness of toe reading,
right?
And there's not enough demand for it.
Yeah.
So hypnotherapy, however, there is awareness, there is demand, but there's confusion about what hypnotherapy is. They always think cluck like a chicken, things like that.
Yeah.
And they don't quite know. Some people are afraid of it, and some people are followers of it, and they trust in it. And yeah, it's helpful to have hypnotherapy because it's a good practice and it's not completely obscure. The public has some awareness of it, and the rest is just you legitimizing it with your professional presence.
There you go. That to me is the key thing. And tell me if I'm wrong, but has anybody ever gotten their general practitioner doctor's personal home phone number and texted them in the middle of the night? I'm going to go ahead and say, no, you don't have that. Or a specialist or a psychologist. Try and get your psychologist's text message. Yeah. Try and get your psychologist's phone number at home.
Yeah.
It will not happen. So model yourself after these people who are showing up in a professional capacity, because I guarantee you, if you present yourself this way, other people will respect it.
That's it. That's the shortest explanation. If you present yourself professionally like other professionals do, then your clients will treat you as a professional.
Yep.
Yep. If you present yourself as a very
like really airy fairy
woo-wooer spiritual person,
which is not bad.
I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just another way of you could be doing past life regressions as a hypnotherapist, and that's very high demand.
Very high demand
by spiritual minded folks, and they might, if that's the bulk of your offering, then they might expect a more spiritual type of an office or dress on your part, or incense burning and things like that. That could be very lucrative. If you're not catering to that specific audience as your main bread and butter, and it's more of a not something you do that often, past life regression, then I would not present your office in a spiritual.
But what was interesting is that you and I crossed that chasm often. We would have spiritual books in our lobby, and we would also have incense burning in our lobby. We would have like images or pictures on the walls that were very spiritually based. And so it wasn't like it was a sterile environment. It was a very comfortable, peaceful, very open, loving environment with clear boundaries. And so you can, walk that line, I think.
You'll get a sense. Yeah, there's no right or wrong, hard and fast answers here. It's just who are you trying to cater to, and are they going to treat you with respect?
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. Does that mean you should or shouldn't have a butterfly on the wall? Not necessarily. I don't know. I don't know. You got to test and measure that with your people, really. But if you've got a phallic picture on the wall, that'll probably upset a lot of people, right? And it's got nothing to do with hypnotherapy, I don't think.
Right. I mean, there's so much you can do here that will help you. I mean, our offices felt like a living room in many cases, because we would often work with clients in group settings, and we had comfortable chairs, and we had a big beanbag chair, and we had so the environment can be really pleasing and comforting and comfortable. I don't remember who it was, but somebody said when they left our office once, they said, I feel like I've been in the womb, I'm like, awesome.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that person still didn't cross any lines, because we had the professional, all the other setups. So just let yourself have all the setups, because when something like you wanting more for them than they want for themselves start to come up, you can reel yourself in and say, wait a minute, what is it that I really want to do differently? And what is it that I really want to, how am I contributing to their wellness,
right?
And their happiness, because doing it for them just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think I had a good qualifier just then. If your space is an expression of yourself and your beliefs, that might be a little bit less catering to the people you might want to attract if you're trying to go bigger as a business owner. Instead, what you might want to do in terms of your office space is to make it as relaxing as possible, especially as a hypnotherapist. That's what you want you want the room to relax people before they even come to see you, right? That sets the tone. That helps people drop anchor. But if you're helping people to relax without challenging their belief systems in any way, then I think you're going to be helping them to relax and not causing any kinds of subtle internal resistance, right? Mm-hmm. If you have statues of Buddha and Kuan Yin and all these different great masters in your office, that's fine and dandy, so long as all of your clients are totally in alignment with that and want that. I mean, then you're just marketing to your target audience.
Yeah.
But if you're not marketing to that specific segment, make sure that your office space relaxes and caters to everyone who you do want to serve.
Right, because we're working with their map of the world.
Right.
And their map's not the territory. So being flexible in that can be really helpful. So, for example, I mean, this feels like it's just gone into an environment study, but, we had a massage table and we had a chair. So they could choose if they wanted to lay down flat, which for some people can feel very vulnerable. And then we would have a chair so they could just lean back in the chair instead of and feeling like they were a little bit more in control. And that tended to make people feel better. So it's just because I like the chair more than I like the table doesn't mean I only have a chair in there. You know what I mean? So it's kind of an interesting opening. Is where you can be really open is and flexible is in your environment that you're presenting them with, keeping that professional attitude, making sure that anything that comes up, if they start to talk to you about transference or you're really making me so much better, reframing that, and then also to reframing anything around you wanting it more than they do.
I can loop it back to wanting it more than they, not wanting it more than they, for them than yourself. I forgot how you said
that's right.
Okay. As it relates to space, and that is, if your space is an expression of you, but not necessarily your audience or your target audience, then you might be wanting it for yourself or for more than them. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
But instead, if you're wanting it for the client and for your business, then your office space should be catering to them, their map of the world, which means it can't be super duper specific or really edgy one way, right?
Right.
So design your office for the results that you want your clients to receive, which is relaxation, right?
Yeah.
Now, you might think that in expressing yourself in your office, it can be good, it can be a positive thing, but if it's only that, well, then it's just about them accepting you, not them, not them being there for the service. That's when we get into needing versus leading and things like that. So it's really interesting depending on how far you want to go with it. But let's keep it on point. We talked a lot about office space stuff and professional presentation, and we can always add that to the show notes if we need to. But you wanting it for them more than they want it for themselves. So that's what we're leading it back to, and
it's interesting to look at, because the way that this kind of shows up, one is that friend comment, the other ways are I feel drained. After my after my session with the client that I'm just supposed to be showing up for, and they're just supposed to be showing up for, and we're just working together, I feel drained at the end of it. So keeping an eye on that was always a big signifier to me, because I was wanting them to get there, wanting them to be happy, or wanting them to get out of victimhood, or wanting them to make a choice. And it's like, no, they're not making any choices. They're happy being where they are, even though they say they're not. So it's looking at the whole picture, feeling drained, getting those comments like I'm your friend, them overly praising you for what you've done for them. Those need to be redirected.
Needing them to be at any other place than where they are when they came in.
Right.
Needing their problem to be solved. That's all you. That's all you, needing them to be at a different place. They're paying you for your time. They're paying you for your service. You can want things for them, but you can't be obsessed with them needing that for them. Their result can't become your need emotionally. And the boundaries can't be blurred, or you are hooked in for failure, man. I mean, that's going to be inevitable if that becomes the pattern.
Yeah.
You can want something, you can give positive regard, you can be friendly without having to be friends.
Yeah.
That's
right.
Right? And I think the thing that really screws a lot of people up is that they don't know, if they're first timers in business, they don't know how to relate to people differently than they have shown up their entire life. Mm-hmm. And when we're wanting to connect with somebody, or when we're wanting to establish a relationship with somebody, the thing that a lot of, I call them healers do, or healer types, or alternative holistic types of people tend to do, is they start looking for signs of approval, right? And it's very common for all of us. We all do it to some extent, a lot or a little. A lot seems clinging, a little seems like you don't care. Yeah. But people do strive for approval in some regard. But you cannot use approval as in a business setting. You can use approval to check in about the quality of the service and get client feedback about the service that's being rendered, but you do not use approval to get feedback about you as a person.
Yeah. Right.
That's if you're doing that, you have made a wrong turn.
Right.
You've made a wrong turn. And it's so easy to do this. I would just anticipate it, that it's going to happen, because we all are so conditioned to look for approval if you are a healer type of person, because we're used to working with people, but approval is about your business working or not working, or how well the service is being rendered. That's how you use client approval. You do not use client approval to find out whether or not you are okay. And if the client is not satisfied, then, oh my God, I did something wrong. What can I do differently?
Yeah.
It's not about you. It's about the service. And you have to make that distinction. All feedback is feedback about the service or how you're rendering the service, but not about you personally. So you cannot allow, you're going to have to strive in this general direction. It doesn't happen overnight, okay? It may take years to really nail this. But you cannot allow someone's, let's say, for example, their negative feedback become something that mortifies you.
Yeah.
That feeling of mortification or that feeling of disapproval means you've got boundary work to do.
Yeah.
All right? Because it's triggering all of your past. And in your business, your past can't be running your business. Because if you're really triggered into disapproval because of your past, because you feel so mortified right now, that's because your past has, like I said, it's leading the situation, and your past is causing you to react to your now situation in business, and therefore your past becomes what runs your business, because you haven't cleaned up your emotional charge around approval, disapproval, and then if you haven't, your reaction to that disapproval will cause you to cling to the client for approval, and then all of your business decisions become about making that client happy. That's what it looks like to not have good boundaries in business if you have approval issues, which most of us do when we start out. If you're drawn to the healing, holistic, alternative umbrella, chances are you have gifts, and chances are you have some things you're trying to iron out about yourself, but also talents. Like I said, we all have approval issues. The questions are, how much are they defining our lives or not? And to put a tight little bow on there, I just say any and every business owner on the planet needs to be able to offer something to the client. Otherwise, if you can't offer clear boundaries, if you can't offer a service, you're not doing the client any favors, really. You should be at least a half step ahead of your client at all times. What do I mean by that? I mean, your development should be at least a half step or a couple steps higher than your client. And chances are, by the law of attraction, you will attract people who are just a couple of steps behind you, kind of thing. And that's the beauty of the universe and how that works. You're teaching yourself how to be more confident with someone who is just a little bit behind where you are, or sometimes a lot. But you generally won't attract people who have their shit together way more than you, and unless but I'm telling you, once you do attract that means you're doing a fantastic job at your service. If you're attracting people who are more opulent than you, who have their life together, and they have plenty of money, they've got functional relationships, and then
then you're working with high performers.
You're working with high performers on the issue, right? It's not about you're not getting validation. You can render service on the issue without needing a thing from them, because they're so opulent. So I noticed, for me personally, in my experience, that a lot more of those opulent people came to us later on, after I had gotten more competency, after I cleaned up my boundaries and things like that. And when I say boundaries and approval, all this falls under the umbrella of not needing my clients, not wanting it more than my clients want it for themselves, right? That whole practice is what puts all this healthy stuff into motion. And you're going to find, and I promise you will find, that you will need to practice these things on principle long before they are emotionally integrated for you. You're going to be going hard against the grain when it comes to setting healthy boundaries. First, becoming aware of healthy boundaries, and then practicing them, and not going down the rabbit holes of showing up like you have in your past relationships, so that you can have a professional practitioner client-based relationship.
This is all massively advanced stuff. It might sound somewhat simplistic, but it's very, very, very advanced. Take it from us. We've been doing this work for 20 years, and some of the things that he just said, I'm like, wow. I'm having a hard time, like, really fully understanding. But that's because I personally have more boundary issues. I have them in my businesses. I have them in everywhere. And there's, I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, the taking things personally, or it's just business, or, whatever. I've heard the other side of that, where business owners say, well, it is personal and it is important to know what your clients want and need and all these kinds of things. But there is a need for that clear boundary. There's a need for that understanding that you aren't doing this for them. One of the ways that I explained my coaching work with clients was, I said, you know what, you climb the mountain and I'm going to stand beside you while you're climbing the mountain. And I'm going to cheer you on the whole way. And I might put, find a handhold for you at certain points. But ultimately, you're climbing the mountain. Another analogy I loved this for more of our spiritual type folks was an angel stands beside each blade of grass and says, grow. And they're not making the grass grow. They're just being that positive influence, that positive energy for that blade of grass. And so that's all we are. We're just a positive influence that is going to help our clients along the way. You are a positive influence. And as long as you don't muck it up with any old belief systems that you have, you take whatever comes up for you and you go to your coach, you go to your hypnotherapist, you go to your people that help you with it. You do not take it to your clients. That was another thing within our business. As publishers, we have hundreds of people who are wellness practitioners that we have published, and they're amazing. And I had somebody ask me recently, why don't you go to them for help with XYZ? And I said, absolutely not, because I am the leader, and for this particular aspect of business, and if I go to them with my problem, then I am actually creating some dissonance there, and so I'll go. I bring love to my clients. I bring love to my authors. I bring love to the situation. I don't get from the situation. That's where it gets tricky.
You mean getting something from a client?
Yeah, from a client or an author, or any of the people that we work with in any kind of business capacity.
I guess that needs to be stated, that you get your needs. It's okay to get fulfilled from working with clients as a result of sharing your expertise and helping people, and that can be fulfilling. But getting your needs met should not be happening in your business. Fulfillment of your needs as a result of expressing your gifts, talents, and passions and love for helping people, that's one type of need fulfillment. That's a healthy need fulfillment. An unhealthy need fulfillment is starting a business so that you can fulfill your needs, right?
Right.
That's different, right? So there's a difference between there's a difference between addressing a client's needs versus you being needy.
Yeah.
Right? Addressing a client's needs is you listening. It's you writing things down. It's you catering your business to the changing demands of the public as they want these types of things, and you're willing and able and wanting to offer that. That's listening to client needs. Being needy is you trying to get something from your client that you can't get anywhere else, and that is a recipe for quick failure in business, or completely incapacitated growth in the long term. You'll remain a hobbyist forever with that approach. But
because you'd be too burned out to
well,
imitation love.
And I'm leading up to the point of agreeing with Kyra, which is, you want to be a professional, you get your personal needs met outside your business, you get your bucket full, and then you come and you give that to clients. You are not there to take clients' money and have them make you feel better. That is an authenticity problem.
It's so subtle, it's so sneaky, it's so underlying. You might not even know it's happening until something starts to give you information back that shows to show you that they're not showing up for their appointments.
Yeah.
They're leading the conversation.
Right.
They're peppering me with, just comment after comment, or they're
question
after question. They're trying to manipulate the conversation.
They're leading you instead of you leading them.
Right. It starts to happen, and it can, like I said, it can be very, very subtle at first. And the way I've always noticed it, am I drained? Do I feel happy at the end of my client sessions? Am I getting overly praised for things that are not my responsibility? And am I in general just kind of emptied out? And then I know something has gone wrong. And so at hypnotherapyschool.net, we do teach you how to handle a lot of these types of problems and situations so that you're able to more fully be present with your clients.
Getting more praise than, what was that last one?
Then I'm due.
Getting more praise than you do? That was a warning sign for you?
Yeah. When somebody would come in, it was kind of like oh my God, you're so great. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. You're so wonderful. I just love you. You're so fantastic.
So they were trying to connect
and
with you.
Like, whoa, hold on.
So they don't have boundaries. Right. Now thank you or a hug or whatever, or a little bit of praise is fine, but if it's excessive, then they have a boundary problem. And then it becomes even more important for you to say thank you, and not mirror that, for crying out loud, but to say thank you very much and bring it back down, because whether it's a negative boundary or an excessively positive boundary problem, whether it's a negative obvious boundary problem or a praiseworthy, appraising boundary problem, it's still a boundary problem. Mm-hmm. And that's a great example. And Kyra's very giving and caring and friendly and loving. And if people have never had that, they will, and they're getting it for the first time, it's going to feel like overload to them.
At first it feels, some people felt distrustful of it.
Sure.
And then other people feel like, oh my God, I'm finally being heard, which is something really beautiful for people to experience. But lines get blurred, so we just have to keep our conscious awareness on it. Right.
You're a fixed point as the practitioner, and you're not supposed to let the client lead you into any direction. You're not to be influenced. You're the hypnotherapist. You're the influencer, right? You can be thankful without going to their house and meeting their family. Right? So, keep it friendly, but not necessarily friends, because as soon as you do, now in some very rare occasions can you become friends, but not a good practice 99% of the time. Just keep it friendly.
I've not had good experiences with that.
It doesn't work out very well, because the tone that's set for that would be, quote, air quote, friendship, is that you're kind of a coach and they're getting free advice and stuff like that.
That's when it gets really sticky.
So that's a negative outcome of not having the right kind of boundaries. Mm-hmm. Usually the best people to be friends with are probably not going to be clients, but they're going to be colleagues, like business owners who understand and have the same challenges, but they're not necessarily people who feel connected to you as a result of you rendering service to them.
Yeah. That's huge.
I think I got my next book. I think it's coming out. Really. Like we said, we could talk on this forever. There's so many facets to it, but I think we need to wrap it up for today. And do you have anything else you wanted to say? I do. I just have a couple more points that are only going to take me about 45 minutes. Yeah.
Everybody just looked at their time clock on the the YouTube video. Like, wait, is he serious? 45 more minutes?
I'm kidding. I will wrap it up by saying, yes, we've covered a lot of stuff. We probably went deeper than we were initially intending and maybe covered more, but I think we gave a lot more value. And all the stuff that felt advanced to you at this point that we said, or the stuff that felt potentially overwhelming because it's like, whoa, this is advanced stuff, and I haven't even thought about that, and oh my God, I have no concept of healthy boundaries with clients because I've never seen a client. You might have those things. Please don't worry, and please don't try to hold yourself to a higher standard than you have awareness of in your current dealings in your life with people and with clients. You're going to have to experience it for yourself and then make choices as you go. The purpose of hearing these things is so that you can, so that we can plant a seed for you, and that when you meet up with those experiences, you have a little seed germinating about what healthy boundaries might look like. And so when you have that, you're going to attract what you're going to attract regardless, right? So, but ideally, you might have a little flicker go off in your head of recognition as a result of having learned what you heard here on this audio video, and that may help to guide you and avoid something you don't need to experience, or help you to make a proactive decision and save you a lot of time. And that's the point of education. It's to shorten your learning curve. But because it's advanced information in some things that we've said here, don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
Just hear it. Just hear it. It's just like hypnosis. You don't have to do anything. We're not hypnotizing you, but you don't have to do anything. You just listen and let your subconscious do the work. And that works successfully even when you're just listening and watching YouTube videos. You're learning things. It doesn't have to be hypnosis for you to learn or for you to change something. It's just a seed that's planted, and you get to absorb that, and keep the expectations of yourself realistic. Let yourself take steps. Let yourself make mistakes, and then course correct as you go.
You got it. That's the most important thing. And just remember, you cannot do it wrong. You're just going to get information.
You're going to get information. That's
it.
Right.
Just get information, gather as much information as possible, treat as many people as you can before you open your practice if you want to just get a taste of what could come up, and then work with your coach about it. Every coach, every hypnotist, everybody should have their own people that they go to and work through some things with, because you need to have some place where you take this stuff to. Oftentimes hypnotherapy is the last stop on the train. People are like, I've tried everything, and you are the last stop. And I know that it's really annoying sometimes. I know it was for me at points where I'm like, if you'd just come to me first, you would have avoided all of this pain and suffering. But since you are that person on that last stop, they can be dealing with some really heavy stuff. And so I know for me, I would take that on, and I would feel terrible at the end of the day after hearing all of the sadness and woes and heartache and hurt that people were going through on a day-to-day basis. And so you got to have some place where you take that to yourself. And so gather your information, take your steps, do the best you can. You can't do it wrong. And you also have hypnotherapieschool.net.
We do, yes.
And we will help you along the way.
We will, and we're giving more than enough value to plug our stuff as often as we possibly can, because
right.
No other hypnosis channel is going to give this kind of value, in my opinion. But I will also tag in there, the reason they come to you as a last resort is because hypnotherapy in the public eye is the least vetted compared to the traditional allopathic doctors and blah, 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 right? But hypnotherapy is still towards the top of the list in terms of holistic and alternatives. So take that seriously, and take it as a compliment when someone comes to you as a last resort. and don't take it on. You just render the service and don't make it about you, right? And then and then just recognize that after a while, people are going to start choosing you first instead of as a last resort.
Absolutely.
And that's always a fun thing too.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Please join us out at hypnotherapieschool.net, and you can also see us more videos here on YouTube. Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. Take care.